Marvel's Darkest Heroes, Kamen Rider Transformations in American Comics. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 31. This is the airship of Tianjin intelligence. Seeing the objects in the clouds revealed, the agent's pupils shrank. See the very conspicuous sign on the airship. Of course, without the sign, they can also recognize that this is the product of Tianjin intelligence. After all, around the Tianjin Intelligent Building, there are 3 or 4 such airships that are constantly circling back and forth. Yes, Tianjin Intelligent Airship. Nick Fury nodded, a slow-motion elongation. I saw a yellow figure, slowly falling from the airship. It was the Kamen Rider 01 that Yen Tianjin had turned into. Then it can be determined that Locust Man is indeed a product of Tianjin intelligence. Hawkeye Clinton nodded. No, it's completely certain that Locust Man is Yen Tianjin. Nick Fury shook his head. He enlarged a picture of an airship and zoomed in again until a blurry figure appeared in front of him. Then refresh and refresh with the instrument non-stop, until a clear picture appeared in everyone's eyes. A handsome Asian man, armed with a yellow sash and blocks, appeared at the door of the airship. In the next second, the man turned into the appearance of Locust Man. Yen Tianjin's transformation process was also photographed by us. Nick Fury smiled triumphantly. This is also thanks to the 2 billion resolution ultra-clear camera produced by Tianjin Intelligence. Want to interview him? Agent Hill was expressionless. It's not easy to meet with the world's richest people. Nick Fury shook his head. Yen Tianjin's identity is relatively special. President of Tianjin Intelligence, genius scientist, maker of Shumakia, top 10 of the world's richest list. Plus the current Locust Man. No matter how capable S.H.I.E.L.D. is, the other party will not be afraid of them. I mainly want to know what is going on with the other party's armor. Nick Fury pointed at Kamen Rider 01 armor, his eyes a little fiery. This kind of armor can give ordinary people the power to defeat the Transcendental. If it is matched with our agents, wouldn't it be like a tiger? I'll investigate. Natasha volunteered. Investigating the rich, politicians, military officers and so on, she is the best. Beauty is almost always hand to hand. Then you'll have to do your best. I heard that we, a 23-year-old rich man, have not had an affair with anyone until now. Nick Fury laughed softly. I'll convince him. Natasha said confidently. Other Gaia memories? That's impossible. Inside the presidential suite at the Four Seasons Hotel New York, Tianjin Mo, who was wearing casual clothes, looked at Coulson, who suddenly visited, and shook his head resolutely. 6 Gaia memories, are you kidding? Mr. Tianjin Mo, you can completely watch this video before talking. Coulson wasn't annoyed either, and put the evidence in front of him. Looking at the magma, violence, ice age and other doped bodies that appeared on the screen, Tianjin Mo's face became very solemn. How is it possible? How is it possible? Tianjin muttered, cold sweat dripping from his forehead, and then looked at Coulson. Where did you get these videos from? This is what happened the night before yesterday in Hell's Kitchen. Coulson looked at Tianjin Mo's expression, and he was also a little puzzled. Don't you know that these Gaia memories exist? These Gaia memories are all experimental memories. Tianjin Mo's expression was not good, and he said, experimental memory is some lower memory made in order to make pure memory. This kind of memory does not use a drive, directly acts on the human body, and the damage to the human body is very high. Therefore, it is forbidden to use only to extract data for experiments. The experimental memory is very strictly guarded. How did they get it? When Utopia defected, didn't he take the experimental memory with him? Coulson asked. Nope. With his strength, how could he break into the headquarters and take away the experimental memory? Tianjin Mo's face was ugly, his eyes flickered, and he seemed to be thinking about something. Is there any way, can we deal with them? Coulson looked at Tianjin. There is also a difference in experimental memory. So the dopants that become are strong and weak. But basically, I can cope. Dopant our definition. People use the power of Gaia's memory to turn into creatures that are doped. Tianjin Mo said. Anyway, this matter has been a little unexpected to me so far. After I investigate, I will report to the headquarters to see how the headquarters arranges. Okay. Coulson's eyelids jumped. Listening to Tianjin Mo's words, he wanted to transfer helpers from the headquarters. So isn't New York getting more and more chaotic? Coming out of the room in Tianjin Yuan, Coulson got into the car and began calling Nick Fury to report the situation. He didn't seem to know. He called these Gaia memories experimental specimens with great flaws. After feeding back all of his conversations with Tianjin Fury to Nick Fury, Coulson asked. He said he was going to report to headquarters, and it was estimated that there would be a lot of doping at that time. What should I do? Okay, I see. Coulson sighed and rubbed his temples. It's tiring to be an agent. Episode 32. Host, Yen Tianjin. Age, 23. Unlocked Kamen Rider book, Kamen Rider 01, Kamen Rider W. Equipment, Kamen Rider 01 drive, High Leaping Locust Program Sublimation Key, Utopia Memory, Nazca Memory. Ability, Earth Library. Slaves, Izzy, Zaya Satellite, Kamen Rider Destroyer, Tianjin Bow. Common Impact Factor, 67,235. Special Impact Factor, 3,100. Tianjin Intelligent Fortress Top Floor Office. Yen Tianjin lay comfortably on the sofa, drinking tea while wandering around the system. There are still 1,900 special impact factors left, and you can unlock a Kamen Rider book. In the past few days, not only Jessica and Dr. Banner, but also S.H.I.E.L.D. have contributed a lot of special impact factors to him. He knew that his identity, S.H.I.E.L.D., was probably clear. His identity was deliberately leaked to S.H.I.E.L.D. He has no intention of hiding, and even soon, he will appear in front of the public and announce in a loud voice that he is the Locust Man. No, Kamen Rider. Thinking of the ugly nickname of Locust Man, Yen Tianjin was angry. This group of Yankees has no beauty in name. I reiterated several times that I am Kamen Rider. He also called himself Locust Man. President, my assistant secretary has arrived. Do you want to meet her? Izzy leaned over at this time. Your assistant secretary, why do you want me to meet? Yen Tianjin pinched her fleshy face. However, there are some problems with her identity. Izzy pouted softly. It seems that he doesn't like to be pinched like this by Yen Tianjin. I know. The corners of Yen Tianjin's mouth hooked up a smile. Who is coming? He knows very well. He knows the information of the entire company. Let her in. Yen Tianjin let go of his hand, and Izzy looked at him slightly sadly, then turned towards the office door. Come in. Izumakia glowed blue. The door of the office opened, and a beautiful and capable figure walked in. She wore a slim lady's suit and stepped on a pair of inky black shiny heels, showing her slim figure to the fullest. The face is delicate, and the makeup fits. The burgundy hair was tied up, and the two petal-like lips of the moon season did not close. As you breathe, the gaps between your lips loom. It can be imagined that the breath she exhaled must be as fragrant as an orchid, the water of the bath, all with a charming wine flavor. Boss. Natasha came to Yen Tianjin confidently and greeted her. Today she spent the longest time to finish her dress. Along the way, I don't know how many men are fascinated when they see her, and how many women are envious and jealous when they see her. She didn't believe it. She couldn't get a young man in her early 20s. It was a young man who was about to move. Wait, your direct leader, it's Izzy. Yen Tianjin was expressionless, stretched out a hand to block in front of her, and then pointed at Izzy. Although Izzy is a Shamakia, my will lies. Sometimes, her command is my command. Her thoughts are my thoughts. Natasha's smile froze on her face. Yen Tianjin just looked at her eyes, and there was actually no wave. Natasha had some doubts about herself for a while. Are you ugly? After thinking a lot for a while, Natasha still obediently came to Izzy and said hello. Well done. Izzy didn't say anything more, and directly arranged a bunch of work for her. Then Natasha was called out of the room and went to her own office. Natasha looked at the mountain of documents in front of her and was in a trance for a while. The task of coming here by yourself will not really be a secretary, right? You successfully influenced Black Widow Natasha Romanzov and obtained 100 special impact factors. New York Harbor. Under the calm sea, there was a sudden churning. This is New York? Several figures jumped out of the sea and came to the dock. There are 5 people in total, 3 men and 2 women, all of whom are Asian-looking. Hey, smuggled mongrel, stop me. Suddenly, a voice came from not far away, and several bright lights hit the 5 people. A group of people came quickly. They were gang-dressed, dressed in flowery greens and armed with guns in their hands. Haha, let us catch 5 Asian monkeys again. The leader of the gang licked his lips. His eyes swept over the 2 women among the 5 with fiery eyes. The 2 female monkeys looked pretty good. Like last time, sell the male monkey to test the medicine, leave the female monkey to play for 2 days and then send it to the street. That woman, I want to go first. Fark, you also went first last time. It's okay, you go on that. I'm on this. Let's go up together, 1 woman, but 3 holes. Ha ha ha. The gangs looked at the few people in front of them unscrupulously, and the filthy words in their mouths made the 5 frown. Captain? The other 4 looked at the beautiful woman in front of them. New York, what a filthy city. The beautiful woman at the head sighed, and her eyes quickly turned cold. Kill. Episode 33. Sheriff, in just 2 days, 5 gangsters have been uprooted, and 3 monsters have been killed in public. New York City Police Department, in the director's office. George Stacy listened to the report of his subordinates, his brows furrowed. Recently, in New York City, it is very unpeaceful. I don't know where a group of monsters appeared, each with extraordinary power, which is not at all something that the police can deal with. Fortunately, the monsters are fairly restrained, basically only fighting for territory in Hell's Kitchen, and rarely go to the rest of the place. But now the situation has changed again. Out of nowhere, another group of monsters came, targeting the monsters in Hell's Kitchen, and began to hunt and kill one by one. The movement caused by the hunt is bigger than the original monsters. The damage and losses caused are also much greater. What does the army say? George asked the deputy. The army said, we want to solve it ourselves. The deputy's face was a little ugly, obviously deflated. Humph. The last time the military made such a big trouble, it was not us who wiped our asses. Now I want them to support, but I actually push 3 and block 4. George slammed the table. After the Hulk made a fuss about downtown New York last time, the military walked away. Or the order he brought people to maintain. Now they don't have the strength to fight the monsters, and they ask the army for support, but they don't expect the other party to ignore it. He knew that the army was scared by monsters. How long will it be before the custom Shimakia arrives? Now the only way George can think of is to customize some security Shimakia. Although Tianjin intelligence ostensibly says that it does not create Shimagia who can fight war, but security type Shimagia, take the weapon is the combat type Shimagia. Tianjin intelligence said, it will be all tomorrow. The deputy replied, that's good. George felt a faint pain in his heart. In order to resist these monsters, he customized 1,000 sets of security-type Shimagia. The price of customization is much higher than the ordinary price. The price of 1,000 sets of Shimagia is enough to spend 200 million. The NYPD has lost its funding for most of the year. Night. In the open woods, a figure fled quickly. It's Andrew with a violent memory. His eyes were now terrified, leaning against the tree, watching around vigilantly. Run, why don't you run? A voice came from the tree. Andrew's pupils shook, and he suddenly looked up, and an Asian man wrapped in a turban and holding a long stick was looking at him with interest. Andrew immediately ran to the other side. Before he could run a few steps, his body retreated. A cold Asian man was watching him indifferently. When he came to his senses, he found that the 4 sides had long been blocked. 3 men and 2 women, like 5 cats playing with mice. Damn, I fought with you. Andrew clenched his teeth, took out the violent memory, and inserted it into his palm. In the blink of an eye, he became a violent adulterated body. Let me come. The man in the tree jumped down. Metal. A silver light flashed over him. He instantly turned into a metal doped. These 5 people are the Never 4 group other than Dao Dao self-denial, plus Asanasaki Tsutoko. Now their identity. Yen Tianxin arranged it as a member of the super force of the mysterious organization Museum, Never. I heard that your strength is great, come and compare with me. Tsuyoshi Demoto punched out. The violent doped chooses to clash with him. In the next second, he screamed and flew out upside down. Obviously, the power of violent doping is not as strong as that of metal doping using pure memory. Is that all? Then you will die like them. Tsuyoshi Demoto showed a wicked smile. They came to New York for 2 days, and hardly rested, just according to Yen Tianxin's orders. They went around looking for the holder of Gaia's memory, and then forced him to fight, and then killed him. They used T2 pure memory to transform into a much better than those who use ordinary memory. In addition, Tsuyoshi Demoto is originally born with divine power, and the compatibility with metal memory is high. Soon, the violent adulteration was under his beating, close to death. Go die. Seeing that the other party no longer had the strength to fight, Tsuyoshi Demoto ruthlessly killed him. Right at this moment, bang bang, a unique burst of gunfire rang out. The 5 immediately jumped out of the way, dodging the incoming bullets. Heaven too. The 5 jumped away again. Woohoo! A rain of needles fell from the sky. A figure quickly swept past everyone, carrying the dying violent adulteration, and came to the shooter's side. Okay, all of a sudden, 2 more people came to the door. Look at the weapon doping and bird doping that suddenly appeared in front of you. All 5 had smiles on their faces. Who are you? Looking at the 5 people, the bullseye who transformed into a bird-doped body, and the executioner who turned into a weapon-doping body had a somewhat solemn expression. With their eyes, it is natural to see it. Of the 4 people who have not yet transformed, at least 3 have undergone special training. The strength is amazing, and the woman in the lead will naturally not be an easy person. It won't be Wog with special forces, right? You used what doesn't belong to you, we can only get it back. Of course, by the way, it is also appropriate to accept your little life. Sanasaki Renko had an indifferent expression and took the memory in her hand. Episode 34. Taboo/taboo. Heat/blazing. Trigger/trigger. Luna/Luna. The 4 people who had not yet transformed immediately pressed Gaia's memory and turned into doped bodies. They are all owners of Gaia's memory. The bullseye and the executioner looked at each other and saw the solemnity in each other's eyes. Go first. In an instant, they were ready to retreat first. Want to go? Look at me. Luna doped jumped into the air, and the yellow body elongated like rubber and rolled towards the 3. The executioner immediately fired his weapon to counterattack, and for a time sparks flew everywhere. Not good, run. After some fighting, the executioner immediately discovered the gap between himself and the other party, and ran back without looking back. The bird dopant that the bullseye turned into was carried by the violent doped, so the flight speed slowed down, and it was entangled by the Luna doping body at once. Oops! The bullseye chuckled in his heart. He saw in the woods below, where the guy called the trigger had already aimed at himself. Boom! Sure enough, the next second, he felt as if he had been pierced, and a fierce shell hit him. The body was hit hard, and he fell from the sky with a violent adulterant. Seeing this, the executioner did not dare to turn his head back, and ran forward with his life. This group of people is definitely not something he can deal with. Going back to the rescue is just a dead end. What other last words do you have? The metal doping showed a sly smile, and the long stick was aimed at the bullseye. The bullseye secretly complained. Saving the violent adulterant is because he and Gaia have a high degree of adaptability, and the experimental data has not yet been counted. I didn't expect to ride myself in, don't you say? Then hit the road. The metal doped stick quickly smashed above his head. At the critical moment, the bullseye rolled, the wings were one, and the huge wind pressure hit the metal doped. Damn. Metal doped was originally unimpressed. Unexpectedly, the other party took the opportunity to release an energy bomb. Falling on the body, there is also some pain. Do you need me to make a move? The Luna doping body stretched out countless tentacles, blocking the environment where the bullseye fled. Let the metal be one-on-one with him. Underestimate who? The metal doping said angrily and immediately rushed to the bullseye. The bullseye was flexible and dodged around in the limited space created by the Luna doped, and the metal doped actually couldn't take him for a while. And the other side, the executioner, who had just escaped from the forest, saw the forbidden doping body floating in the air in front of him. Abominable woman. The executioner was a little annoyed, and the machine gun in his hand spewed out large pieces of molten metal. I want to use this to entangle the other party and run away. Sanasaki smiled contemptuously. Don't bother to dodge. With a wave, for purple-blue energy balls are thrown. The executioner was blown up and flew, then fell heavily to the ground, losing the ability to resist. You guys solve it, Sanasaki said indifferently. Yes. The trigger doping lifts the gun and begins to gather energy, ready to completely take out the executioner. At this moment, the trigger doping quickly flashed. A blue and black figure quickly hit the place where he had just stood. Dirt splashes, trees fall, dead leaves fill the sky. A blue dragon-shaped monster with an executioner that turned into a weapon-doped body quickly flew into the sky. A few, on my territory, people who bully me, this way, something is not good. A majestic figure descended from the sky. The blue dragon-shaped monster spat the executioner to his side and burrowed into the top of his head. Fear. The members of the Never Squad in front of him immediately shrank their pupils and looked at this figure. Utopia, gave you the fear memory? Sanasaki's eyes narrowed slightly. Thanks to the appreciation of Lord Utopia. Kim is not at ease. Interesting. Utopian kind of people can buy people's hearts. Sanasaki smiled disdainfully, and the next second, her body shot out. Countless energy bombs were thrown towards Jean for a while. Jean-He's face was also very solemn. This is also the first battle since he transformed into a fear adulterant. And the strength of the other party does not seem to be weak. He has already played the spirit of 12 points. An endless quagmire of fear pervaded him. The figure of the executioner was also included and disappeared to the ground. But the energy bomb of the forbidden doped body hit the mire of fear, but it sent out a burst of explosions. A swamp of fear was blown away directly. Originally, with the power of fear doped, it was completely possible to crush the forbidden doped. But Yen Tianxin, as the master of the Kamen Rider Chronicle system, all the products of the system are ultimately under his control. With just one thought, he can recycle anything that is handed out. This ability also includes the ability to weaken an item. The ability of the fear memory that Jean used was weakened by him to 1%. So it's not Sanasaki's opponent at all. For a time, he was pressed and beaten by Sanazaki Uenzi, looking very embarrassed. On the bullseye's side, after all, the hard strength is not as good as the metal-doped body, and now it has been beaten all over the body and is doped by the moon god. Jinha Group, it is about to be destroyed on the spot. Episode 35. What a terrifying power. In the forest, except for Kim and others and members of Never, many people had already noticed the movement and rushed over. Daredevil Matt hides behind a small hillside, and in his senses, powerful creatures are engaged in battle. Every figure can easily pinch him to death. He was watching the battle from behind a small hillside, and did not dare to approach the center of the battlefield. Wait, those people are. Suddenly, he frowned. In his perception, thousands of figures were rushing towards this side. Each one is heavily armed. Even, he heard the sound of armored vehicles and helicopters in the distance. He immediately reacted. This is the armed police coming. Tactful, he immediately drove away. The other side. George Stacy looked at several figures on the battlefield with a telescope and sneered. Hit it. Hit it. In the end, everyone will fold in his hands. The corners of George Stacy's mouth hooked up a smug smile. These opponents in front of him, he knows very well who it is. On one side is a criminal group headed by Jean, and he has long been eager to get rid of it. On the other side is a group of smuggled Chinese who can turn into monsters with special means. Perhaps, the monsters of Hell's Kitchen were created by them. In George Stacy's eyes, Kim and others are full of evil, and Never's people are going around wreaking havoc. Both sides are not good things. They will be arrested and sent to prison. His thousands of security guards have been put in place, and more than 200 policemen have been gathered. 14 armored vehicles, 6 helicopter gunships were also mobilized. The entire New York City police force has come more than half. He's going to finish the battle today. Achieve the prestige of a Sheriff George. Looking at the battlefield with burning eyes, George quietly waited for the victory and defeat to be divided. Still hiding. Where else can you hide? Under the bombardment of the energy ball of Sonosaki, Jean finally couldn't resist. The huge body suddenly fell to the ground. Watching him fall to the ground, the bullseye that had already turned back into a human body and the executioner's face turned white. The boss who can do everything is folded, so what good end can he have? Then, let's execute together. Sonosaki asked the rest of the people to capture Jean and the others. A ball of energy bombs condensed in his hand. This is the time. Fire. George Stacy, who was in the distance, brightened his eyes and shouted loudly. Suddenly, thousands of security guards Shimeji appeared. Each of them carries heavy weapons. Armored vehicles and helicopter gunships are also firing shells in the direction of the woods. More than 200 police officers used props to provide support. The ferocity of this firepower can come to blitz Poland. In an instant, the overwhelming firepower came to Sonosaki and the others. Right at this moment, time stands still. This overwhelming shell seemed to have lost its power and stagnated in the air. This picture made the eyes of the New York police officers present widen. What's the situation? George Stacy's mouth opened wide in surprise. This scene in front of him is really beyond his understanding. Really? Why do you have to force me to make a move? A figure with golden light slowly descended from the sky. He is mysterious, noble, and proud. Temperament is enough to make many people surrender on the spot. Utopia. Sonosaki and the others immediately shrank their pupils. Report, the target Utopia has appeared. Farther away, SHIELD agents are also monitoring the scene. Originally, they planned to wait for the New York police to subdue these monsters, and then use their power to take over. Unexpectedly, the first target Utopia suddenly appeared, making the arrangement of the police empty. Even, looking at the current state of Utopia, the fate of these policemen may be somewhat tragic. As they expected, Utopia looked at the policemen. Others are fighting, you actually sneak attack. What a morality. He shook his head, his tone suddenly playful, cruel, and vicious. I'm going to punish you. Utopia raised the scepter in his hand. The stagnant shells also began to move. Not good, Chief, run. The deputy was the first to react, pushing George Stacy directly into the command car and then grabbing the driver's seat. 1 foot of the accelerator to the end, the deputy does not look back and drives away. What are you doing? George had just reacted, and before he could finish his words, he turned his head anxiously and looked behind him through the car window. His pupils dilated suddenly. I saw that in the sky. The countless shells were all returned. Shoot at the Shimakia troops, police, armored vehicles, and helicopter gunships. Boom, 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 boom. The explosion resounded in the sky. Dirt, trees, buildings, people, vehicles, all creation. All creatures, all in all drowned in the explosion flames and smoke. Wait until the smoke clears. Originally a grove with a small park, it has long been turned into a wasteland. There is no complete building, no complete tree, no complete flower, no complete one Shimakia. Of course, there is no more complete person. Episode 36. George Stacy stared blankly at everything in front of her. His pupils were out of focus, his expression was slightly dull, and his mouth was slightly open. The scene in front of him gave him too much shock. Except for him and a few police officers who ran faster, the other policemen present disappeared. With an explosion of this level, it is not difficult to imagine their end. He finally reacted, his eyes full of resentment, looking at the towering figure in the sky. Tor. Nation. Extreme hatred, extreme anger, squeezed out of his teeth. See, human. This is the end of provoking the gods. Utopian doped laughs wildly in the air. Then he turned his head and looked at Sonosaki and the others. It's funny, Never's people actually dispatched most of them. How is it to catch me? Utopia waved his scepter. Purple thunder whipped towards several people like a long whip. When several people dodged, Jean Lien, Bullseye, and the executioner had already arrived at Utopia's side. Today, that's the end of it. In the future, there will be time to play with you. Utopia smiled triumphantly, his body rose into the air, and in a blink of an eye he disappeared. Damn. Sanasaki chased in the air for a while, but the speed is not as fast as the other party, and in the end I can only come back helplessly. Die. The angry Never people vented their anger on the violent adulterant. Andrew was beaten to death by several people, and Gaia's memory was shattered. After venting, the Nevers left the place. Wait for them to leave. Not long after, a figure in a suit came over, wearing anti-pollution gloves, and picked up the shattered Gaia memory on the ground. Glancing at the direction in which several people left, the man in the suit also quickly left the scene. This is a declaration of war. This is a provocation against the entire United States. Utopia will definitely pay a price. According to the investigation, Utopia is a Chinese. We can believe that this whole incident is a conspiracy of the Chinese government. The Chinese government must give us an explanation. Looking at the bombastic president on TV, Yan Tianxin smiled disdainfully. Open your own system interface. The special impact factor is coming to 5,200. He would like to thank S.H.I.E.L.D. and others and street heroes. During yesterday's battle, they provided themselves with a large number of special impact factors from time to time. It seems that they are also very frightened. Unlock another Kamen Rider book, or unlock the second layer. Yan Tianxin touched his chin. 5,000 special impact factors that unlock one Kamen Rider book, or the second layer of Kamen Rider W or Kamen Rider 01 book. Thought about it. He made his choice. Congratulations on unlocking the second layer of Kamen Rider 01 illustrated book. More products and permissions are available for you. Browse the marketplace where the product is being updated. Yan Tianxin was suddenly moved. In the mall, 2 new satellites were listed, Zaya satellites and Yak satellites. As for the price is a bit expensive. Each satellite is 150,000 ordinary impact factors. This is a good thing. Yan Tianxin looked at the new Kamen Rider called Abaddon in front of him and thought thoughtfully. This is a production rider in the Kamen Rider 01 theatrical version. The individual strength is stronger than the Kamen Rider 01 base form, and the commander's specification is even comparable to the Shining Locust form. But the biggest highlight is this mass production mechanism. He's totally ready to sell. Even Iron Man's basic mark armor can sell for tens of millions of dollars apiece. He Kamen Rider Abaddon is not too much to sell for $100 million. Anyway, the military of various countries has money. Take a look at Kamen Rider Abaddon's price. Drawings of normal specifications are 30,000 ordinary impact factors, and drawings of commander specifications are 50,000 ordinary impact factors. Bought. Yan Tianxin gritted his teeth and bought the ordinary specifications first. Next, it's time to improve your strength. Now he has 3 options. What suits him in front of him is a metal cluster locust with up to 300,000 ordinary impact factors, shining assault locusts with 100,000 common impact factors, and 20,000 shining locusts with ordinary impact factors. In terms of strength, of course, the metal cluster locust is the strongest. Even, glancing at the panel of metal cluster locusts given by the system, Yan Tianxin was moved. 10,000 ton wrist strength arm power, 100,000 ton kick power. What's more, it also comes with drawings for making metal clusters. It is equivalent to buying patterns and sending black technology. Attractive. However, a common impact factor of 500,000. Even if Yan Tianxin keeps making trouble, he has to save for 3 or 4 months. And the cheapest shining locust form. It is much stronger than the basic form of 01, but for his current needs, it is still a little weak. He needs a set of armor that can fight Utopia and not be seen. Utopia is the boss of Kamen Rider W, and his strength is amazing, and with a Kamen Rider 01's shining locust form, it is simply impossible to compete. Therefore, Shining Assault Locusts has become his best choice. Take a closer look. Shining Assault Locust, 2,700 tons of fist power, 3,900 tons of weight, and 11,000 tons of kick power. The speed of 100 meters takes only 1 second, and the jump height is 500 meters. Judging from the current Marvel timeline, it is enough to cope with everything at present. Episode 37. 100,000 ordinary impact factors still need to be saved for a few days. But now utopian news is very hot and ferments quickly. There are also a large number of common impact factors in the account. Yan Tianxin was not in a hurry, turned off the system panel, and called Izzy. President. Izzy obediently trotted over. Yan Tianxin liked the feeling of her calling herself president, so I didn't let her change her words. Of course, outside, Izzy still calls him boss. How has Natasha been doing lately? Yan Tianxin flicked her forehead lightly. She handles documents very efficiently and solves problems quickly. In short, it is very reliable to do things. Izzy answered truthfully. I see that she is still in the mood to drink afternoon tea every day, and she still looks relatively relaxed. Yan Tianxin mobilized the monitoring in Natasha's room. The other party was reclining on the chair, and 2 long legs dressed in black silk were being placed on the desk. And her diagonal position is just right. The chest is facing the monitor. In this way, arrange more work for her. Of course, the salary should not be increased. Yen Tianxin was not moved at all. His hobbies, not in this category. Izzy nodded obediently and walked towards Natasha's office. 10 minutes later, you successfully influenced Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, getting 100 special impact factors. Yen Tian smiled proudly. Adult, we have let you down. Inside the Fisker building, Jean, Bullseye, and the executioner saluted Utopia doped. The Utopia here is no longer Yen Tianxin. Instead, it was Yen Tianxin who exchanged it with ordinary impact factors, a user of Utopian memory in the original. I don't blame you. The Utopian doping shook his head disapprovingly. This is the museum's elite team, never. The strength is so strong, even I have to avoid the edge for the time being. Museums? Never. When the three of them heard the name, they glanced at each other. From the other party's eyes, they all saw a blank look. Apparently, none of them knew about the existence of the museum. The museum is the organization that made Gaia Memory and me. Never is their organizational elite, and each one is an excellent adapter for Gaia Memory. Years of experience in using dopants. Utopia's words made the three people's pupils shrink. Create Gaia Memory. With this alone, the museum must not be simple. Gaia Memory is the secret of the museum, and experimental memory is a taboo within taboos. I thought I would be safe and sound when I ran to New York. Unexpectedly, they were also willing to chase and sent so many people to New York. The corners of Utopia's mouth suddenly hooked up a smile, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. However, since they dare to chase after New York, let them have no return. Do adults have a way to deal with them? Kim asked tentatively. The strength of the opponent is a little too strong, and at their current level, it is impossible to be an opponent at all. And the Utopia in front of him began to say that it could not win so many people. Of course. The Utopian doped body raised its head, and its eyes swept over the three people coldly. Next, give me a good recovery. At that time, the three of you will be the bait to lure out Never. Yes. Jean and the three responded immediately. They were actually angry in their hearts. Originally calling for wind and rain in Hell's Kitchen, they actually became bait for fishing. However, under the majesty of Utopia, the three did not dare to have other thoughts, and could only do everything. Boom. Coulson picked up the pistol, glanced at the cat's eye, and opened the door. How is it, Mr. Coulson? How are you staying in the presidential suite? As soon as Nick Fury entered the door, he lay down on the spacious and comfortable sofa. Very comfortable. More comfortable than home. Coulson had a smile on his face. S.H.I.E.L.D. sent him to spy on Never's gang, and rented the presidential suite opposite the other party. Of course, your house is not worth $8,000 a night. Nick Fury felt a little sorry for his little money. I don't know how those Chinese are so rich. 6 people in 3 presidential suites. In order to better monitor them, he can only rent the presidential suite. Have they taken any action these days? Nick Fury looked at the instruments in Coulson's room. Inside is the room image of 6 people, including Yuan Saki Renzi and Tianjinyu. It's still the same as before. I sleep during the day and go out at night. Coulson shook his shoulders. They're physically good, but nowhere near worse than our agents. Strong is strong in their hands. Gaia memory. After these days of monitoring, I found that it was very difficult to capture the Gaia memory in their hands. They are inseparable from Gaia's memory, but there are 2 types of transformations. The first is Tianjin Mo and Yuan Saki. When they use Gaia memory, they also wear a drive and use the drive to drive Gaia memory. Their strength is also the strongest, and it can be seen that the status of the 2 is very high. The second is the other 4. Their Gaia memory is plugged directly into the human body. But unlike gangsters, they have no interface device. Gaia memory automatically integrates into the body. Episode 38. What do you think? Nick Fury asked. It can be seen that the museum is relatively hierarchical. Those who use the drive to drive Gaia's memory should have the highest status and the strongest strength. And those who directly integrate Gaia's memory into the body have a status lower than that of the driver, and their strength is much weaker. The lowest level should be transformed through interface surgery, and during my chat with Tianjin Mo, he also revealed that those who need interface surgery are experimental memories. Therefore, these gangsters are being used by Utopia as experimental subjects and are conducting some kind of experiment. Coulson said his own judgment. However, you said before that the experimental memory is very strictly guarded in the museum. How did Utopia get it? Nick Fury had always had doubts in his one-eyed. Tianjin Mo couldn't figure it out, so he called the rest of the Nevers team over at the headquarters. At the moment, they have not investigated anything for a long time. Coulson shook his head. I suspect that there are traitors in the upper echelons of the museum. There are traitors in the top? How is this situation so familiar? Nick Fury and Coulson looked at each other and smiled. By the way, how about the study of Gaia's memory? Coulson asked. Every time Nevers people solved a doped, they would follow behind and bring the broken Gaia memory back to study. There are some results, but not much. Nick Fury shook his head and said, "Guy, the principle of submemory has not yet been understood, and several scientists say that the most important thing in it has been destroyed. However, they found that the material used in the Gaia memory shell is a new titanium alloy, so it can be integrated into the human body without being rejected. They have already started performance tests on the alloy and the results are very good. So, it's better to get a complete Gaia memory in hand." Coulson frowned. Getting a complete Gaia memory is not so easy. Kim has Utopia over there, don't even think about it. And on the museum side, you won't be able to get your hands on it for a while. And the Hell's Kitchen gangster is stared at by the museum again. So, they have been able to only pick up the rags. This is the end of inferior strength. Natasha, what's the catch? Coulson suddenly remembered Natasha's task and immediately asked. Yes. The harvest is great. Her overtime this month can pay you for a day's room. Nick Fury mocked mercilessly. An agent, now reduced to a coolie. I work until 10 o'clock in the evening every day, and I am also disciplined by the boss. Not bad either. Let her treat to a meal when the time comes. Coulson immediately had a smile on his face. I don't know why I was happy all of a sudden. Endless deserts, pitiful vegetation, hot environments, missiles that cross the sky from time to time. This is the Middle East. A hidden cave full of weapons and armed men. This is a camp of the famous terrorist organization 10 Commandments Gang. Get in, get in. At noon, at the entrance of the cave, there was a rough shout. Inside the cave, a man of about 30 years old and a middle-aged man from the Mediterranean heard these shouts. The two looked at each other, immediately stopped the movements on their hands, and hid the tools in their hands and the iron bumps in front of them. Get in. Two 10 Rings gangsters kicked a middle-aged man in a trench coat into a cage and locked up with the two men. Rude, too rude. The man in the trench coat coughed softly and slowly got up from the ground. He patted the dirt on his body and slowly pressed the detective hat on his head and put it on. You were also kidnapped by this gang of robbers? Looking at the two people in front of him, Narumi Shokichi was stunned. Who are you? These two men, one is the missing Tony Stark, and the other is the Nobel Prize winner, the famous physicist Ethan. The two looked at the man in front of them suspiciously. Hello guys. My name is Heizuang Gyoshi and I am an adventurer. Narumi Shokichi introduced himself like this. Yes, dare to come to the Middle East, indeed risky. Tony taunted. What do you know? According to the records, there is a treasure in this place. Narumi Shokichi immediately muttered dissatisfiedly. Okay, then now please go find your treasure. Tony clasped his hands in front of his chest. These damn terrorists. Narumi Shokichi scolded and looked outside. Be quiet. The two terrorists immediately came and screamed. Narumi Shokichi immediately coughed softly and stood aside in ashes. All right. I'm also unlucky, I happened to meet a sandstorm. Narumi Shokichi sighed, looking at a person complaining and whining. Shokichi Narumi going. Stark and Ethan on the side looked at each other, and for a while they didn't know what to do. The kidnapper suddenly threw in another person, disrupted the escape plans of the two of them. Moreover, the other party still does not know if it is an undercover agent sent by the 10 Commandments gang. I couldn't believe him for a while. Episode 39. Days flew by. Inside the cage of the cave, the three people gradually became acquainted. Mr. Hai, about the legend of your treasure, tell me more carefully. Due to the presence of Shokichi Narumi, Stark and Dr. Ethan have not knocked on the armor again in the past few days, fearing that the purpose will be exposed. They haven't fully believed Narumi Shokichi yet. As a result, chatting with Shokichi Narumi became the only entertainment for the two of them at night. Narumi Shokichi seems to have a rich adventure experience, and he has a lot of magnificent stories in his head. I don't know, have you ever heard of the story of Pandora's box? Hearing that the other party wanted to listen to his own story, Narumi Shokichi immediately came to the spirit. He immediately straightened up from the bed and looked at the two. Pandora's box, do you mean that legend? Stark raised his eyebrows. Pandora's box is not just a legend. Unexpectedly, Narumi Shokichi's expression became serious. After my investigation, Pandora's box does exist in this world. And its burial place is in the Middle East. Well, mythical stories, I haven't heard them for a long time. Tony Stark reclined and watched with interest Shokichi Narumi's performance. Don't be dismissive. These are all true. Narumi Shokichi was a little annoyed, and felt that he was not respected for the other party's frivolity. Please continue. Dr. Ethan tugged at Tony and motioned for Shokichi Narumi to continue his story. Although, he should only be a story. Pandora, the first woman in Greek mythology, Zeus made of clay, was used as punishment for Prometheus for creating man and stealing fire. The gods also joined to make her more attractive, and she married Prometheus' brother Epimetheus. She is curious about everything. Open the box of God's gift to humanity. But the box is full of plagues, sorrows, friendships, calamities, love, and so on. By the time Pandora closed it, there was only hope left in the box. Before Pandora opens the box, human beings have no calamities and live peacefully. And that is because all the viral evils are locked in boxes, so that human beings cannot be tortured. Since then, disasters have harmed mankind day and night, everywhere, and caused human suffering. Narumi Shokichi said the legend of Pandora's box. Well, then what? Tony yawned. But actually, that's not the case. Narumi Zhuangji's face was very solemn. After investigation in Europe, Africa, Wagwa and other places, I found that this Pandora's box is likely to be the product of aliens. Yo, myths have become science fiction. Tony's eyes lit up. I love to hear this. I know you don't believe it, because everything is too weird. Narumi Shokichi took a deep breath. I have found murals or materials about Pandora's box all over the world. I found out that Pandora's box is actually the door for some alien race to come to Earth. Wait, they can send Pandora's box to Earth, why not just come to Earth yourself? Tony frowned and stubbled. You can send satellites to the sky, why not go to the sky yourself in the first place? Narumi Shokichi asked rhetorically. Okay. Tony waved his hand and motioned for him to continue. The role of Pandora's box, I guess, is what level this alien civilization has reached in order to survey the intelligent species on the planet. So I suspect that in ultra-ancient times, it is quite possible that advanced civilizations existed. It's just that because of the opening of Pandora's box, civilization was destroyed. Therefore, the legend of Pandora's box has been passed down since then. Narumi Shokichi fumbled in his underwear, took out a small book. Look, this is the results of my investigations over the years. Tony and Ethan leaned their heads over, and the notebook contained some profile photos in various languages and some field trip photos. It looks quite real. According to the information, Pandora's box was buried in the mausoleum by a certain Middle Eastern king 3,000 years ago. Narumi Shokichi introduced them to what was written in his small book. According to the comparison, the location of the mausoleum is within these tens of square kilometers. Looking at Shokichi Narumi, who looked excited, Tony and Ethan looked at each other. The 10 Commandments gang shouldn't use a neuropathy as an undercover agent? The two exchanged a bit. That, Mr. Hai. I want to ask you, do you want to go out to hunt for treasure now? Ethan asked with a light cough. Of course. Narumi Shokichi nodded. So do you have a way to get out? It seems. Not yet. Narumi Shokichi sighed, and the excitement disappeared all at once. Then, we have a way. Tony lowered his voice and whispered in Narumi Shokichi's ear. We choose to believe in you and hope you will live up to our trust. Wait, we're going to build a device that can get out of here, and you don't attract the attention of the guards, okay? Equipment to escape here? Narumi Zhuangji glanced at the two suspiciously, seemingly a little disbelieving, but still nodded. Thank you for your cooperation. Tony and Ethan looked at each other, immediately took out the hidden armor, and began to pound and weld. Episode 40, Times Square, New York. A grand condolence is taking place. This is undoubtedly a major tragedy. 239 dedicated policemen died because of the murder of lawbreakers. Yan Tianxin wore a black suit and white flowers, facing the tens of thousands of citizens who came to mourn in front of him, with a solemn expression. We died. They are heroes. For the safety of the people of New York, go against a group of powerful monsters. Their bravery is a shield to protect the people. On behalf of myself and Tianjin Intelligence, I would like to express my highest respect to the 239 police officers who were killed. And deep regret. Yan Tianxin looked sad and placed a bouquet of flowers on a stone carving symbolizing 239 policemen. Then bent down to show respect. Snap. The applause was thunderous. Also, on behalf of Tianjin Intelligence, I would like to compensate each police family who died $4,000 a month in relief until their children reach adulthood. The applause was even more sensational. After giving a testimonial, Yan Tianxin immediately returned to the Tianjin Intelligent Building. The sorrow on his face suddenly turned into a smile. Just now, this show suddenly got tens of thousands of ordinary impact factors. As for the money, Yan Tianxin's money is already too much to count. President, according to the feedback from the extinction, the Amazon of the Life Foundation has been cultivated. As soon as he arrived at the office, Izzy gave Yan Tianxin a powerful news. Then, let him do it. Yan Tianxin's smile was even brighter. When the Amazons run to the city, won't my Kamen Rider Abaddon armor be a hot sale? When will the plan be executed? Izzy's Shimakia flashes blue light, linked to Zaya's satellite, and sends information in real time. The day after tomorrow, the Life Foundation will hold a new product launch. At that time, it is time to extinguish the hand. Yan Tianxin smiled. Of course, I won't let him personally take action, since someone will go over and destroy. But aren't you going to be there? Amazons, it's not under your control. Izzy looked at him worriedly. Don't worry, have you forgotten that I have 01 armor? Rubbing Izzy's soft flesh, looking at her blushing with shame, Yen Tian raised his head proudly. It's time for my identity to be exposed. Izzy looked at him, her face full of tenderness. A few days passed. Familiar cave. What a cool guy. Looking at the mark armor that Tony and Ethan worked together, Narumi Shokichi couldn't help but give a thumbs up. In this humble environment, it is indeed remarkable to make such a huge iron can that can be worn and moved. That's not good. Tony said smugly. In the past few days, Narumi Shokichi not only did not snitch, but used his wisdom and words to help them cover. The mecha manufacturing speed of the two is much faster. However, wearing such a set, can you really escape from here? Narumi Shokichi was a little suspicious. If you don't do this, it's even more impossible to escape from here. Tony replied without a word. After escaping, can you help me find the treasure? Narumi Shokichi asked. Tony suddenly stopped his movements and glanced at him. Besides, almost 2 hours later, both Tony and Dr. Ethan stopped and looked into each other's eyes, full of joy. There is only one last step away from this armor set. By tomorrow, it's all done. The thought of being able to escape this ghost place immediately, the two couldn't help but be a little excited. But right then, rumble. A huge explosion resounded over the cave. In an instant, the entire cave shook, and rubble and dust fell in a heap. Attack, there is an attack. The members of the 10 Rings gang outside immediately shouted, and then rushed to the outside of the cave with their weapons. But soon, their screams came. Who's coming? Ethan was a little nervous. Listening to the posture outside, it seems that there is a lot of movement. It must be the army that came to rescue me. Tony smiled triumphantly, suddenly relaxed, and lay down on the bed. Huh? How is there a cat barking? Tony frowned suddenly. Cat barking. Hearing this word, Narumi Shokichi's face suddenly turned pale, and he sat down on the bed, his breathing quickening. Hey, novelist, what's wrong with you? Tony and Ethan immediately looked at Shokichi Narumi. The other party's face was a little scary. Quick, Tony, put on your armor, quick. Narumi Shokichi rushed to Tony, looking panicked, his body trembling, as if he had encountered something terrifying. What the hell? Tony wondered. That thing outside is not the army, nor is it here to save you. Narumi Shokichi's face turned extremely pale. It's here to kill me. Kill you? Tony and Ethan looked at each other. Too late to explain. Hurry up and put on your armor. Otherwise, I can wear it. Narumi Shokichi crawled under the box to get enough armor. What the hell is going on? Tony and the two were confused, but seeing that Narumi Shokichi was so anxious, he also took out the mark armor. Meow. Right at this moment, a huge cat cry resounded above everyone's heads. Episode 41. What a big cat bark. Tony and Ethan were startled and looked up overhead. Click. The boulders on the cave showed signs of shattering, and several people hurriedly dodged. 2 horrible corpses fell to the ground. The wounds on the corpse were not caused by bullets and shells, but rather like feline claws. I'll go. Is this a saber-toothed tiger? Tony was taken aback. Yes, it's a saber-toothed tiger. Narumi Shokichi nodded immediately. Novelist, the saber-toothed tiger has been extinct for 10,000 years. Tony looked at him speechlessly. Don't care so much, put on your armor, it's coming. Narumi Shokichi almost roared. Okay. Tony, with Ethan's help, hurriedly put on his armor. Although the last step of armor has not been completed, the combat ability after putting it on will not be affected in any way. Let's kill these people while it does. Let's go quickly. Listening to the screams from the members of the 10 Commandments gang outside, Narumi Shokichi said to the other two. Tony took the lead, and his body slammed forward, and the wall of the dungeon broke directly. In front of him are 2 members of the 10 Rings gang who are hiding with guns. The 2 immediately shot at the 3 who escaped from prison with guns. Tony stood in front of the 2, sparks erupting from the armor on his body. He rushed towards the 2 gangs, and his huge body directly knocked them away. Go! Narumi Shokichi picks up the guns of the gang and assists Tony in solving the surrounding gangs. The 3 hurried towards the other side. We need a car, otherwise we can't hide from it. Narumi Shokichi looked around and saw a desert buggy of the Shiji gang. Okay. Tony and Ethan have been scratching their heads though, but seeing that Narumi Shokichi was so anxious, he also followed him and went to the distance to get the car. The monster is here, kill him. Allah above, give me strength. Yes, help, I don't want to die. The members of the 10 Commandments gang returned frenzied fire not far away, and the sound of gunfire and shells was deafening. In the shocked eyes of the 3 people, a strong and powerful figure jumped down from the top of the mountain. Directly rushing into the crowd of the 10 Rings gang, the sharp claws wantonly harvested the lives of the people around them. Its body is human-shaped, but it resembles a tiger and leopard. The body is black with strong muscles and yellow mane on important parts and near the skull. The claws of the palm are large and sharp, full of the majesty of the predator. The already hideous and terrifying face, plus 2 scarlet fangs. You say that this thing does not eat people, no one believes it. What is that? Tony and Ethan's eyes widened. You successfully influenced Iron Man Tony Stark, and you get 200 special impact factors. You successfully influenced Dr. Ethan and obtained 100 special impact factors. Even if the two were knowledgeable, they also developed a fear of the creature that suddenly appeared in front of them. It's the Executioner. Narumi Shokichi's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and his face was full of jealousy. Executioners who specialize in executing defectors. Executioners, defectors? Tony glanced at Narumi Shokichi, novelist. What kind of organization have you defected to send such monsters to chase you? It's a long story, let's go first. Narumi Shokichi ran towards the off-road vehicle. The 3 of them just arrived in front of the car. Meow. A sharp cat bark resounded like thunder around the 3 people. It's coming. Tony had just raised his heavy fist, ready to intercept the saber-toothed tiger doped. But in the next second, I felt a huge force coming in my chest. Rumble. He only felt a sharp pain in his chest, and his whole body involuntarily flew back, embedded deep in a stone wall. Watching Tony in armor be solved so easily, Dr. Ethan glanced at the AK rifle in his hand. Swallowing a mouthful of spit with difficulty, Dr. Ethan threw the AK rifle on the ground and gave a French military salute. The saber-toothed tiger doping directly passed over him and came to Narumi Shokichi. I said, I didn't defect, I wanted to do something of my own. Narumi Shokichi looked at the other party's displayed paws, sweated coldly, and justified. The saber-toothed tiger doped shook his head disdainfully, sneering at what Shokichi Narumi had said. Otherwise, I'll go back with you and make everything clear? Narumi Shokichi continued. The saber-toothed tiger doped still shook his head. The claws on the hands were always lit, and the body was filled with a murderous aura. Obviously, it is to carry out its only task. That is to kill Narumi Shokichi. In that case, there is nothing to say. Narumi Shokichi clenched his fist and pulled an object out of his pocket. Skull. Pressing the skull memory on his hand, Narumi Shokichi integrated it into his body. In an instant, his body began to expand, transformed into a monster with a skeleton on the upper body and a warrior form on the lower body. It looks like a skeleton man. It's different from the Kamen Rider skull in the original. The current Narumi Shokichi is in the form of a skull doped. Episode 42. You successfully influenced Iron Man Tony Stark, and you get 200 special impact factors. You successfully influenced Dr. Ethan and obtained 100 special impact factors. Obviously, after seeing Narumi Shokichi turn into such a monster, Tony and Dr. Ethan were also shocked. Seeing Narumi Shokichi, who had become a skull doped, the saber-toothed tiger doping couldn't help it anymore. Its nimble body slammed towards Narumi Shokichi. Click. Click. Sharp claws slashed across Narumi Shokichi's body one after another, burst into flames from Narumi Shokichi's body. His body, even if he turned into a monster, was like a sandbag, wantonly ravaged by the saber-toothed tiger adulterated body. Obviously, he is not an opponent of the saber-toothed tiger doped at all. Hey! Just as the saber-toothed tiger doped body swung out its claws, ready to deliver a heavy blow at Narumi Shokichi, a short and powerful shell hit its body. Although the shell can't hurt the saber-toothed tiger doped, the momentum on it is enough to blast it out. The saber-toothed tiger's doped body was carried out hundreds of meters by this shell, saving Narumi Shokichi's life. Tony coughed twice. The heavy blow to his chest just now from the saber-toothed tiger doping body made him even more seriously injured because he already had a chest injury. Moreover, the residual shrapnel suddenly pressed his heart, making him almost burp. Fortunately, it's just a little bit. Bombarding the saber-toothed tiger doping away with a cannonball, Tony walked towards Shokichi Narumi. Let's go. Dr. Ethan had already taken advantage of the fact that Narumi Shokichi was beaten by a saber-toothed tiger adulterated body, and drove the desert SUV over. Looking at the saber-toothed tiger doped body that got up and reacted, he was annoyed. Dr. Ethan said quickly to the two, "You guys go first, I'll hold it." Tony's bulky armor is equipped with jet boots and can fly. Although he didn't fly high, he felt that it was completely enough to shake off the saber-toothed tiger doped. Clearly, he was wrong. He flew to a height of more than 20 meters above the ground and looked condescendingly at the saber-toothed tiger doped. "Little kitten, do you have any way to do with me? Look at your ugly appearance. My God, if I were your master, I would not dare let you out." Tony was making a witty remark. In the next second, the angry saber-toothed tiger doped body jumped directly, and its dexterous and powerful body jumped up. No more, no less. The height of the jump is exactly the height of Tony's flight. Tony hurriedly dodged in the air. He narrowly dodged the jump attack of the saber-toothed tiger doped. When there was an afterthought, he saw that the saber-toothed tiger doped body below suddenly condensed a blue-purple light. "Won't you, energy bomb?" Tony's pupils vibrate. He immediately reacted and dodged down. Boom! Energy bombs slammed into his back armor. A flame lit up in the air. Tony! Dr. Ethan was shocked. Ahem, I'm fine. The armor fell to the ground and Tony climbed out of it. Fortunately, this set of armor has no advantages, that is, the skin is thick. After a burst of energy bombs, although the armor was destroyed, there was nothing wrong with the people. Get in the car. Dr. Ethan drifted in the sand, and the SUV came to Tony. Narumi Shokichi, who had lifted the skull doping form, immediately pulled Tony up with one hand. Dr. Ethan stepped on the accelerator, and the vehicle rushed out like an arrow off the string. Seeing this, the saber-toothed tiger-doped body chased after him. Every now and then, its body releases an energy that pops out and shoots towards the vehicle. Fortunately, Dr. Ethan's driving skills are not bad, and he dodges in time every time. Then, novelist, it's time for you to tell us clearly about this monster and the origin of the USB flash drive on your body. After a certain distance from the saber-toothed tiger-doped, the three of them were temporarily in danger of their lives. Tony immediately looked at Shokichi Narumi with a scrutinizing look in his eyes. Oh. Let me make it clear to you. Narumi Shokichi sighed, organized the language, and said, I am an adventurer and I have been a successful person for the first 30 years of my life. I have a lot of loyal fans, good friends, an understanding wife and lovely daughter. Until I was 30 years old, I found the pattern of a mysterious box in some ancient ruins. This inner pattern is very similar to the pattern left by a certain ruin during my inquest in Greece. After some comparison, the two patterns are really the same. However, one pattern appeared in Greece, and the other appeared in the southern moon. This immediately piqued my interest. After a long search, I finally determined the pattern of this box is the legendary Pandora's box. And, after an in-depth investigation, I determined one fact. Pandora's box is a product of aliens. I was happy to tell the leadership about this discovery. The leader scoffed. Tell like-minded friends that they think I'm crazy. Even my wife and other relatives thought this result was strange and felt that I had a mental problem. To prove myself, I divorced my wife, separated from my family, and even sold my house to start a worldwide search. Episode 43. In the midst of yellow sand. High-speed off-road vehicle. The two quietly listened to Narumi Shokichi's self-statement. Finding Pandora's box has become my only purpose in this life. I frantically searched for information and found a lot of new evidence that proved me right. But, I'm still being questioned. A lot of people think I've gone overboard. Something is wrong with my spirit. The state did not value me, my relatives did not believe me, and my friends began to isolate me. I can only continue to investigate the whereabouts of Pandora's box around the world alone. Investigable and requires funding. My savings, the money I paid for selling my house, were quickly spent. I could only do some detective work while continuing my adventure. It was slow, and I sadly thought I didn't have a chance. At this time, a mysterious organization in Huagua found me. They call themselves museums and fight to destroy all creatures in the world that harm humanity. They said that there was no error in my research results. And, he gave me a bag of documents. Inside the file bag is information about Pandora's box. I was so emotional that I joined the museum without thinking about it. In the first 2 years, I enjoyed working in the museum. They are all talented, speak well, and work efficiently. I thought this was my final destination. Later, I discovered their purpose. They want to use me to find Pandora's box and then control the power of Pandora's box to control the world. After learning the truth, I took the opportunity of going out to investigate and escaped from the museum. Unexpectedly, they actually chased to the Middle East. Narumi Shokichi's face was bitter. So, what is the matter with this USB disc-shaped thing in your hand and that monster? Are you the secret weapon cultivated by the museum? Tony listened to Narumi Shokichi's story. You can think so. Narumi Shokichi nodded and took out the skull memory. This thing is called Gaia memory. It is a tool made by museums to give people great power. How does it work? Tony took Gaia's memory in his hand and looked at it carefully for a while. Without opening, Gaia memory is indeed very similar to a USB flash drive. Gaia memory is essentially a special program that seals various memories on Earth into special containers. Through the combination with the human body, humans will merge with the Earth memory in Gaia's memory and become monsters with various powerful special abilities. The museum calls this kind of monster doped. I'm also an adulter. Narumi Shokichi smiled self-deprecatingly. You successfully influenced Iron Man Tony Stark, and you get 200 special impact factors. You successfully influenced Dr. Ethan and obtained 100 special impact factors. That cat monster is also doped? Tony digested the information given by Shokichi Narumi a little before continuing. It is a saber-toothed tiger doped, the executioner of the museum. Its strength is so powerful that it is dedicated to executing those members who betrayed the museum. Narumi Shokichi nodded, his expression a little solemn. Its tracking ability is very strong, and it is difficult for us to escape if it is targeted. What is the strength of the executioner in the museum? Tony looked back at the figure of the saber-toothed tiger doped. The other party turned into a small yellow, but still stubbornly chased after the three. It seems that if you don't chase the three, you won't go back. The executioners are special beings under the direct order of the curator, and there are only 2 in the entire museum. Their strength, in the entire museum, can be regarded as second-rate. The top ones, of course, are the curator and deputy curator. First class, it is the captains of the special squad. Never. Second-rate are executioners. Narumi Shokichi's expression has never relaxed. The strength of the museum is unfathomable. Even if you flee to the United States, it is estimated that you will be caught up. Novelist, don't worry, when you go to the United States, it is my territory. Hearing his words, Tony shook his eyebrows and said proudly, by the way, when you get to the United States, can you borrow this Gaia memory from me? No problem. It wasn't that important to me. Narumi Shokichi nodded. Whoops, suddenly, the SUV slowly stopped. What's the situation? The 2 people behind the car were shocked. No gas. Dr. Ethan kicked the buggy angrily. Isn't it? Tony covered his forehead and looked behind him. Fortunately, the figure of the saber-toothed tiger doped body is missing. It should have been thrown away from a long distance. They have time to escape. Go east, there is a country over there. Narumi Shokichi pulled out a special compass out of nowhere. Then point to the east. In the city, the executioners do not dare to do it wantonly. And, the more smells, the harder it is to discern our taste. Listening to Narumi Shokichi's opinion, the 3 of them picked up the few food and water in the car, as well as an AK rifle, and rushed east. Episode 44. Tianjin Intelligent Fortress. 18 basement floors. There is a special underground space. Except for Yen Tianjin and Izzy, no one else was eligible to enter. Almost. Yen Tianjin was in the Earth Library, observing the actions of Tony and his party. Narumi Shokichi is the toolman he summoned to guide Tony. A few days ago, while drawing with a normal impact factor, he drew a few full bottles from Kamen Rider build. There is exactly a tank full bottle. Create the related items of the ride. Yen Tian thought about it in his heart, or it is the most suitable for Tony. Tony is also the most suitable shapeshifter for creative writing. Now bury the foreshadowing, and then Tony will accept it, which is logical. So, he stole the day. Using the power of Shamakia, an underground mausoleum was built near the Middle East. With his current level of technology, he is not afraid of others seeing him at all. As for the Ancient One and others, there are systems that are covering the heavens, so there is no need to worry about their discovery. Everything is ready. Just wait for Tony to take the bait. Leave the Earth Library. Take Izzy back to the office on the top floor. Boss. This is the material of the cooperation with Tesla. Your signature is required. Natasha's slim figure came up to him and handed over a stack of documents. Natasha has been doing very well these days. Yen Tianxin promoted her to 1 level as his assistant secretary. In terms of positions alone, Natasha and Izzy are on an equal footing, but the power is far apart. Yen Tianxin nodded, took the document, flipped through it, and signed his name. The current Tesla, due to the Tianjin Intelligent Pearl in front, the development is not satisfactory. Go get busy. After signing, Yen Tianxin began to rush people. Natasha obediently turned away. She was used to Yen Tianxin's attitude towards herself. The other party does not look like a normal man at all. She could feel that Yen Tianxin's cold attitude towards herself was not feigned. He really didn't have the slightest desire. It's like a robot. Wait until a while. She came to the elevator. The lowest floor in the public elevator is only 16 basement floors. Only the private elevator of Yen Tianxin's office can go to the 17th and 18th basement floors. 18 floors underground. What will there be? Natasha's eyes twinkled with curiosity. No, I can't walk. In the hot and dry desert, the 3 figures trek hard. Dr. Ethan and Tony Stark gasped and sat on the sand with their butts on the sand. After walking for more than 2 hours, the 2 could no longer withstand it. Can you hold on? The sun is going down, and we have to find shelter before the sun goes down. The temperature difference in the desert is too great, we will freeze to death. Narumi Shokichi looked around. While looking for shelter, he was wary of the pursuit of saber-toothed tiger doped. 10 minutes. Take a 10-minute break. Tony lay in the sand, covering his face with his clothes. Oh my god, it's better to let that monster kill. I'm going to be roasted alive. You crow's mouth. The monster is really coming. Dr. Ethan was lying on the other side, and he was immediately startled when he saw a jumping figure in the yellow sand. Isn't it? Tony was stunned, and sure enough, he saw the figure of the saber-toothed tiger doped towards them. Run. Narumi Shokichi gritted his teeth and turned into the form of a skull doped. 1 left and 1 right, carrying Tony and Dr. Ethan, running into the distance. Be careful. Hearing the reminder of the two, Narumi Shokichi immediately jumped to the side. The energy bullet of the saber-toothed tiger-doped body instantly hit the position where the three people had just been. Boom. Suddenly, this energy bomb seemed to penetrate something, and several people only felt a vibration on the soles of their feet. Quicksand? Looking at the sand that kept sinking, the three immediately panicked. In the desert, quicksand is more terrifying than sandstorms. Get out of the way, Tony and Dr. Ethan immediately yelled. But Narumi Shokichi's purpose is to take the three people inside. How can he dodge? He made a full leap out of the way. But the next second, there was an exclamation. Oops! Under the feet of the three people, suddenly empty. Along with the surrounding sand, the three quickly sank below. Ahem. A few minutes later, a figure crawled out of the sand. The grizzled Tony spat out the sand in his mouth. I said, too. What is this place? The two didn't move, and Tony looked up and saw the magnificent building in front of him. You successfully influenced Iron Man Tony Stark, and you get 200 special impact factors. You successfully influenced Dr. Ethan and obtained 100 special impact factors. The three people stared blankly in front of them. A pyramid-like mausoleum appeared in front of the three people. What the hell is this? How can there be pyramids? Tony muttered. Here, I'm afraid this is the place I have been looking for in my life, the Red King's Mausoleum. The two turned their heads and looked at Shokichi Narumi. I saw that the vicissitudes of the other party's face had now been replaced by excitement and madness. It's like a believer seeing his gods. Episode 45. Here, this is the Red King's Mausoleum. In the record, the mausoleum of the last owner of Pandora's box. Narumi Shokichi took out his old little book from his arms. Comparing with the mausoleum in front of him, he danced with excitement. Look, look. This is the Red King's Mausoleum, and Pandora's box is inside. My guess is right. Narumi Shokichi ran madly towards the mausoleum in front of him. Novelist. Tony and Dr. Ethan hurriedly chased after him. Soon, the three of them arrived at the door of the Red King's Mausoleum. The design of the Red King Mausoleum is Yen Tianxin's reference to the 3.1 new version of a popular game, A Certain God in the Original World, and the design of the Red King Mausoleum inside. Just to save time, the design is a bit rougher. But even so, it can shock several people. After all, according to Narumi Shokichi, the Red King was a being who lived 3,000 years ago. The productivity at that time could build such a mausoleum, which was even more amazing than the pyramids. Where is the door open? Several people came to the mausoleum, and a huge stone door stopped in front of the three people. I searched around, but I couldn't find the door switch. Look at the torches on the wall. As an adventurer, Narumi Shokichi finds that devices that others have not discovered are normal. He pointed to the torches on the wall. This is arranged according to the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper, the brightest 7 stars in the constellation Ursa Major that can be observed on Earth, have a very important symbolic meaning in various ancient cultures, and civilizations such as Greece, China, and body poison have their legends. The Red King also has the faith of the 7 stars. How do you untie it? Tony asked. It should be in the order of the 7 stars to light the torch. I'll try. Shokichi Narumi raised his AK rifle and aimed it at the torch. Bang. 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 7 gunshots. There seemed to be some combustion aid in the torch on the wall, and it was hit by a bullet and burned directly. Shout. In the astonished gazes of the three, red light shone under the 7 torches, forming a pattern of constellations in the wall. Then, the heavy stone door opened abruptly. Meow. Before the three of them could rejoice, a deafening cat bark made the smiles on the three faces disappear. Get in quickly. The three immediately rushed into the stone gate and entered the mausoleum. Close the door. Narumi Shokichi said. Unexpectedly, without a few people's hands, the door fell by itself at once. Bang! The saber-toothed tiger doping rushed over the moment the door fell, but it was still a step late and was rejected by the stone gate. It still banged furiously against the stone door. The heavy door fell to ash under its impact. I don't know how long it will last. Let's go. Find Pandora's box, we don't have to be afraid of it. Narumi Shokichi immediately looked around. For the expedition, Tony and Ethan are not familiar with him, and naturally follow him. Go this way. The two followed Narumi Shokichi and went around in circles along the way, cracking several mechanisms along the way. The two couldn't help but look at Narumi Shokichi, worthy of an adventurer. Soon, several people arrived at the heart of the mausoleum. It's a vast space. A huge golden coffin appeared in front of everyone. What's going on? How did it become like this? The three looked at the coffin in front of them, but their eyes widened. Only the coffin in front of me has been opened, and it is empty. Around, many stone pillars and sculptures are shattered, and many places on the ground are potholed, as if they have been bombarded by cannonballs. Here, it seems like there was a big war. How so? How did the mausoleum become like this? Pandora's box. What about my Pandora's box? Narumi Shokichi searched around the golden coffin, rummaging through boxes and cabinets along the way, trying to find the whereabouts of Pandora's box. Looking at him like this, Tony and Dr. Ethan also looked solemn. The saber-toothed tiger doping is outside. If there is no power of Pandora's box, when the saber-toothed tiger doping breaks in, the three of them will have no way to escape. The two also began to move separately, searching around. Come and see. Soon, Tony found out and beckoned to the other two. On his hand, there was a broken U-disc-shaped thing. A broken USB stick? No, it's Gaia memory. Dr. Ethan looked at it and suddenly his face changed. This item is somewhat similar to the skull memory in Narumi Shokichi's hand. I'll take a look. Narumi Shokichi also came over, took the broken items, and his face changed. That's right, this is Gaia memory. Why, there's Gaia memory here. I'm afraid someone has broken into here before us. And it should be the people of the museum. Tony judged. His eyes were sharp, and he picked up a few more broken Gaia memories. Who did they fight with? And, finally, one of the parties opened the golden coffin and took the contents of it. Quite possibly, it's the Pandora's box that was taken away, Tony deduced. So the question is, who fought the museum? Dr. Ethan asked. Now only fragments of Gaia's memory have been seen, not the remains of other people or creatures. Could it be that there is civil unrest in the museum?